Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something that might not sound super exciting, but trust me, it can save you a ton of money. Hiring the right gutter contractor. Honestly, getting this right is one of the smartest things you can do to protect your home. So let me ask you, when was the last time you really gave your gutters a second thought? If you're like most of us, probably not since the last big storm, right? We tend to just ignore them, but they are an absolutely critical defense system for your entire house. You see, their job is so much bigger than just catching a little rain. A good gutter system directs thousands of gallons of water away from your house. But when it fails, well, that water ends up exactly where you don't want it, chewing up your landscaping, flooding the basement, and even cracking the very foundation of your home. And the cost of that failure? Oh, it's staggering. We're talking thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in repairs, all because a pretty simple system wasn't doing its job. And that is why picking the right contractor is so incredibly important. All right, let's dive right into our playbook with Phase 1, vetting the contractor. Think of this as your homework stage. It's what you do before you even think about signing a contract. We can break this whole vetting thing down into 3 really simple steps. First, we're going to check their documents to make sure they're the real deal. Then we'll actually talk to people they've worked for. And finally, we'll put on our detective hats and scan their online reviews. Let's start with the paperwork.
Any contractor who's on the level should be able to hand these 4 things over without even blinking. A business license and permits prove they're allowed to work where you live. But the insurance and bonding, that's what protects you.
Now, let's zoom in on insurance, because this is a big one. You need to make sure they have 2 specific kinds. Liability covers any damage they might do to your house, but workers' comp, that's what keeps you from getting sued if one of their crew gets hurt on your property. Seriously, without that, their accident could become your financial nightmare. Next up, don't just settle for looking at a gallery of pretty pictures on their website. Ask them for at least 5 recent references that you can actually call. And when you call, ask real questions. Were they on time? Did they clean up after themselves? What happened when something went wrong? You can learn a lot from a little hesitation in their voice. And finally, hop online and check out their reviews on places like Google or the Better Business Bureau. Now, here's a pro tip. Don't just look at the bad reviews. Look at how the contractor responds to them. A calm, professional response can tell you way more than a dozen 5-star ratings. But if you see the same complaints over and over again, that's a huge red flag. Okay, so you've done your homework and you have a short list of contractors who check out. Now we move on to Phase 2, evaluating the job itself. This is where we dig into the details of the proposal, the materials they want to use, and the estimate. A good contractor won't just tell you what material they're using, they'll explain the pros and cons for your specific house. You know, copper looks amazing and can last a literal century. Aluminum is a great all-round choice, and something like cast iron might be perfect for an older historic home. Make them tell you why they're recommending what they are. Oh, and a quick heads up, you might hear them use the word eavesdrop. Don't let it throw you. It's just another name for the gutter itself. See? Now you know the lingo. Listen, the best materials in the world are totally useless if they're not installed right. So look closely at that estimate. Does it specifically mention creating a proper slope so the water actually drains? Does it say the downpipes will run at least 6 feet away from your foundation? If those details aren't in the estimate, you have no guarantee they're going to happen. So you've got a few estimates in your hand. And it's so tempting, isn't it, to just jump on the cheapest one? But that brings up a really important question. Why is that lowest bid almost always the riskiest? Here's the bottom line. If one bid is way, way lower than the others, that's not a good deal. That's a warning. It almost always means they're cutting corners somewhere. Maybe with cheap materials, maybe with uninsured workers, or just a rushed job that's going to fail on you in a few years. You're not looking for the cheapest price. You're looking for the best value. And that brings us to our final phase, protecting your investment. This is all about the paperwork that seals the deal, the contract, the warranty, and a payment schedule that makes sure you get exactly what you're paying for. This is so important to get straight. There are usually 2 different warranties. The labor warranty from the contractor, that covers the installation itself, might only be for a year or 2, but the material warranty from the company that made the gutters could be for 20 years or more. You need to have the paperwork for both. Okay, if you only remember one thing from this, let it be this. Get every single promise in writing. The warranty, the exact type of materials, the start and end dates, all of it. A verbal promise from a salesperson is completely worthless when you've got a leak 6 months later. A true professional will have a fair payment schedule. You should expect to pay a small deposit, maybe another payment when they're halfway done, and then the biggest, final payment only when the job is completely finished. If anyone asks for a huge chunk of cash up front, that's a massive warning sign. Just walk away. And that leads us to the golden rule for protecting yourself. That final payment, that's your leverage. Do not, and I mean do not, hand it over until you have walked the property, inspected the work, made sure everything is cleaned up, and you are 100% happy. So let's put this all together. We're going to boil it all down into one final, non-negotiable checklist so you can hire with total confidence. Think of this checklist as your shield. Make sure they're licensed and insured. Get at least 3 detailed quotes. Demand a written contract. Understand the warranties. And never, ever pay that final amount until the job is done right. Following these steps is how you protect your investment. In the end, it really all comes down to this one question. Your home is probably the biggest investment you'll ever make. Are you sure it's being protected by the right team? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.